Star Wars Jedi Survivor got some amazing new details released today in an article from GameInformer, and I want to go over a few of those juicy details as Respawn's Stig Asmussen sat down with GameInformer to give some context to some awesome things that we already sort of saw in the reveal trailer and some things that we didn't quite get to see. So speaking of juicy details, if you do enjoy today's video, don't forget to leave it a nice, thick and juicy like as always. Of course, if you enjoy this kind of content, you want more like it, be sure to check out that big red sexy subscribe button right underneath the video. Also gotta thank my channel members. You guys help make these videos possible. If you want to join, get access to the exclusive perks that they get, be sure to check out that blue join button. Anyway, let's begin. The first thing I want to talk about is going to be combat. Probably the most prominent thing you noticed in the trailer is going to be the various styles and ways that Cal was fighting. Of course, there's the iconic dual blades, there's the Darth Maul style blade thing going on, and of course the classic single blade style. And at the end we got a little bit of a teaser of the cool Kylo Ren looking crossguard blade and that sort of broadsword looking lightsaber. And those do play a role beyond simple customization. These are actually going to have to do with different stances that Cal's going to be able to use throughout the game and approach enemies in different ways. Now, if you've played a game like Ghost of Tsushima, you're probably familiar with a system like this. Ghost of Tsushima offered different samurai stances for Jin to use against the different Mongol enemies, and even with the director's cut and the expansion that it offered, there were enemies that would actually switch the weapons they were using, so you had to actively switch which stance you were using in the middle of combat. And it's a very interesting and cool aspect to that game's phenomenal combat system. Now, the cool tie-in here is, of course, the Jedi in Star Wars do have their own lightsaber stances, which were inspired by the samurai and their different sword stances. So there's kind of a cool historical link there that I think a lot of fans will appreciate. Now, Stig Asmussen goes into some detail as to the different stances we'll have. So, of course, there's the dual blade option, which is sort of this fast-paced, flipping and spinning sort of combat, and I'm sure that might be for enemies who are maybe a little bit slower moving, and if you hit them quickly, maybe you can take them out a little bit quicker. And there's also a really cool stance where Cal actually uses a lightsaber and a blaster at the same time. So those of you who saw the leaked pre-order bonuses, or if you've seen the pre-order bonuses that they announced since, you'll see that there are blaster kits in there. That's not just something for decoration, that'll actually be something you'll be able to utilize in the game. Now, the article doesn't mention if we'll be able to use the blasters just on their own individually in a sort of more low tone, let's not expose that we're a Jedi type of way, but we will be able to use the lightsaber with the blaster at the same time, and I'm just very curious to see what kind of awesome combat scenarios that is going to result in. The other stance that they talk about is the crossguard style stance, which sounds really awesome too. It's actually supposed to be a beefy, more confident approach according to Asmussen, which means it might be a little bit more slow moving when you attack a target, but it sounds like it's going to pack quite a punch. Regardless, all these sound amazing. I'm very curious to see how Cal comes across these different stances, how he learns about them, and how he implements them. And I think Asmussen makes a very interesting point that I'm glad the Respawn team is taking into account when making this game. He says, "It's been 5 years since the first game and the dark times are still in full swing. He's an unconventional Jedi and he has to do unconventional things. So something that would be frowned upon during the height of the Jedi Order, Cal's finding he's going to do whatever it takes." And I think that's really cool. It sort of points to this gray Jedi type of feel to Cal. He's not going about things in a super traditional way, and I think that's a very interesting approach, because one of the big questions a lot of people have had, and I know this could almost be its own whole video, but a lot of people have been wondering, well, you know, Cal, there's no way he can survive up until the time of A New Hope. There's no reason he'd be out doing something else when something like the attack on the Death Star is being planned. There's not really a way to kind of work around that aside from killing him off at some point. But I think this could be sort of a hint at where this may be going. Very similar to what they did with Ahsoka Tano, where she's not really a Jedi. She's sort of her own thing. And I think Cal might be going down this gray Jedi path, where because he has to do whatever it takes, he's still going to follow the light side. He's not going to give in the dark side necessarily. Of course, we don't know that for sure. But I could see him being this gray Jedi that's sort of in the middle. So you have Ahsoka, who's sort of the embodiment of the light side, you could say, and then you have Cal, who's sort of in the middle, and then I'm very curious to see what sort of dark side character they might come up with to be the embodiment of the dark side. It'll be very, interesting to see that. Maybe you could say it's the Grand Inquisitor or somebody like that. No one really knows. We'll have to see if they ever do anything with that or if a character like that shows up in this game. But I think that's a very interesting sort of potential hint into where Cal's story is going. Speaking of characters and story, there are going to be more characters added to the cast of this game. They have confirmed that BD1 and Seer Junda are coming back. Still no mention of Marin or Grease, which I find interesting, but they do talk about a new mercenary named Bodhi Akuna, which is going to be the guy that we saw in the trailer. We saw him and Cal doing this sort of combo. They say he and Cal are going to form a special bond, almost like they're brothers. They're not exactly the same, but they do complement each other. They also mentioned that beyond the story, Bodhi does play a role as a buddy AI character who aids in both combat and traversal, which I find very interesting for gameplay. I think it's really cool to have AI companions beyond just BD1 in this game. But I do wonder if there are going to be more AI companions than just Bodhi. If maybe Marin comes back as a potential companion, maybe Grease does too. Although I don't really know what Grease would be doing as a companion, considering in the first game his whole story arc was I don't want to leave the ship. Who knows? I am very curious that neither of them have been mentioned despite their large presence towards the end of the first game. Though I am curious where that's going, why they haven't been mentioned yet. I don't know. Maybe they're off doing some kind of special mission. Who knows? Lastly, though, they did mention Traversal, so I do want to talk a little bit about Traversal. They do say Jedi Survivor is embracing new Traversal mechanics, and Asmussen does specifically reference that it's a Metroidvania style approach. So Cal's going to be able to cross huge gaps by chaining several different types of skills together, which I think is actually a very fascinating way to approach the Traversal. We've seen in the trailer that there are some new things like a grapple, which they call in the game an ascension cable, which if you played games with grapple hooks, I mean, you find the point and you shoot to it and it pulls you there. It looks most similar to the Horizon Forbidden West grapple, so if you played that game, that'd probably seem very familiar to you. But there are other games that do use that. There's also, of course, the point where Cal is sort of sliding down this wall with his lightsaber dug into it to slow his fall. I think that's a really awesome thing, and I hope there's more stuff like that, utilizing the lightsaber, just kind of fully embracing some of that cool stuff that we want to see from Star Wars. And then lastly, there are, of course, the mounts, which I'm very interested to see. I feel like the wildlife is one of the underappreciated yet always ever-present things in Star Wars, and being able to see the different wildlife that we're going to encounter not only on the new planet we're supposed to visit, but any of the familiar planets we go to. Instead of course, just brutally murdering anyone we come across like the first game, being able to tame some and utilize them to traverse the world, I think that's going to be very, very cool. And of course, as they say in the article, this is all just scratching the surface. There's going to be much, much more, including a new gang of enemies Cal will contend with, which it looks like whatever Jedi or whoever we get out of that Bacta tank might be in charge of, as well as that big ugly guy in the suit of armor and the guy with the sort of electric pike thing. I don't know, he tried to kill us in the trailer. Seems like they're a part of that gang, and I am curious as to what they want with Cal or what that has to do with the story. It seems very interesting, as of course the Empire is also chasing down Cal. Again, I am extremely interested in this game, where it's going, where Cal's story is going, where his friends' stories are going. I cannot wait to experience it in March. Let me know down below what you guys think of Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Let me know if you're excited for it. Let me know what other Star Wars games you are looking forward to, or just what other games in general. Let's have a conversation, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
Here we go.
After all we've done, the Empire has only grown stronger.